The last time I saw him, he was staring through binoculars out over the ocean from his home high on a cliff overlooking Monarch Bay. His hands were still bandaged, and he was drinking Bombay gin neat out of a coffee cup that read, "Get whale soon." Whale watching was his way of honoring his late wife, who'd been thrown from their sailboat during the Newport to Ensenada yacht race some months earlier. Fighting depression, he was recovering from lacerations to his hands and a hernia he suffered, trying with fishing line to reel in one of the animals he suspected of being involved in his wife's death. They had been studying humpback whale songs. After years of trial and error, he devised a method of translating the humpback songs into English, Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan, Portuguese, Quechua, Tagalog, Croat and Tibetan. It wasn't clear why they translated the whale songs into Tibetan. The whale had not traveled to the Himalayan region for millions of years, but llamas like to plan ahead. It wasn't clear if they were planning for reincarnation or global warming, but it didn't matter. Commitments had to be kept. He made his fortune in a specialty manufacturing business, perfecting the tent pole, but eventually it collapsed. Now he spends his days scanning the horizon for orcas, gambling on highlight tournaments in Tijuana, painting pastoral scenes from his childhood home with pigments he distills from the marrow of beached whales, and carving likenesses of his late wife in scrimshaw. His gift for non-human languages began with birds. He loved birds and could understand their phonetics intuitively. There's evidence that he was raised by ostriches in Botswana. Early in his career, he interpreted bird calls for the military in Afghanistan and translated the language of the screech owl into Esperanto. As far as we know, he was the first to translate the songs of the Solomon Islands hornbill into Lithuanian. Language arts were always his passion. He taught himself Greek at the age of 5, Arabic at 6, and by age 11, he was fluent in Italian, Spanish, French, German, Dutch, Swedish, Norwegian, Basque, Hebrew, Farsi, Urdu, Hindi, and several African bush languages. At Oxford, for his dissertation thesis, he deconstructed Icelandic sagas and translated them into Swahili. While vaccinating children for cholera during the Great Yellow River Flood, he learned to speak Chinese like a Mandarin, and his Russian was beyond reproach. Once his whale song translations made a splash among linguists, his wife became determined to write a few verses of her own. Her lyrics exalted the majesty of the humpback species as the rightful monarchs of the seven seas. With the help of audio engineers from Caltech, she reproduced them in the vernacular of the whale, using the Newport to Ensenada yacht race to test the whale's reception to her composition. But shortly after she placed the broadcasting equipment in the water and pressed play, 60 nautical miles southeast of San Clemente Island, an angry pod of orcas rammed their vessel. She was thrown overboard, dragged under by a large, blubbery beast, and lost at sea. After the tragedy, he suffered from insomnia. For weeks at a time, he couldn't sleep and acquired an addiction to sleeping pills, but they never seemed to work. He went sailing out to sea, only semi-conscious at the slightest sign of killer whale. Loaded on Ambien, his grip on reality began to loosen. He started sleepwalking in other people's dreams. As we sat there in silence, gazing out over the Pacific, a sudden buzzing sound startled us, and a sparkling young hummingbird flew in the window, alighted on the stem of an orchid on the coffee table before us, started twittering and chirping in bright, cheerful tones. He understood instantly what the bird was saying. Although his late wife's body came to rest in Davy Jones' locker months earlier, her spirit merged with Mother Earth and was reincarnated as a ruby-throated hummingbird who paid us this visit. Her feathered form just one of many her spirit was taking, specifically to say all was well, remind him of her eternal love, and that they would meet again in several years after the great earthquake. She explained this to us and was gone on the next breeze. That was the last time I saw him.